Hello, I'm your host, Tamara Caulder Richardson, and welcome to Seeking Heaven, the Near-Death Experience and Other Phenomena. We have a series in February, and it's called Love Leader Lessons. And today we have a very special guest for you that's going to be perfect for our topic, which is Love Endures All. And let me tell you a little bit about our guest. And I'm going to pull him on in just a second, but our guest, Peter Panagore, he's a two-time near-death experiencer. He's an author of multiple books. His book, Heaven is Beautiful and How Dying Taught Me That Death is Just the Beginning, was one of his first books that was put out. He's also a pastor. He has done daily devotions on 2 of the NBC TV stations, as well as he graduated with a master's in divinity and a focus on practices and writing and the classics of Western mysticism, which is an area I'm interested in too. So that's fascinating. Peter is also featured in Life to Afterlife, the Near-Death Experiences, currently streaming on Amazon Prime. So that would be episode 5 if you want to check that out. Also, he's a YouTube podcast host. He's done many things, so you'll have to look at his bio and resume, and I will put the link down below, peterpanagore.love, which I love that part, the .love. But he has a popular YouTube show, which is called Not Church, which is Sundays at 10, and it's really, really grown. So today we have Peter here to talk about Love Endures All. So thanks for being here, Peter.
Thank you for having me, Tamara. Good to see you again.
Yeah, you too. Yeah, you're a busy guy.
Yeah, I like busyness.
Yeah, I do too. I like to keep it going. And so you also have, you're busy. Are you still busy with writing your, is it the Heaven is Beautiful into a screenplay?
Yes, except for I'm not actually writing the screenplay. I'm writing the enfolding fictionalized narrative that surrounds my bestseller, Heaven is Beautiful, in order to make it into a feature film. And so that is in the hands of my executive producers now. I completed that 90 pages, 40,000 word piece I wrote over the last 6 or 8 months, 2 weeks ago. And now I'm waiting to hear what the next step is. It's been a great process of learning to write in a new way under their tutelage. It's been really fascinating.
Oh, that's good. I'm glad you're involved so you could keep the integrity of your story. So that's good, right? So all the important key parts.
Well, yes, I trust these people because one of them is a near-death experiencer. That's how I met them.
Oh, well, that's perfect. Oh, yeah, I would trust them too. That's great. Okay.
Right.
I can't wait. Well, we'll look, when this gets ready to happen, we'll have you back on, and then we'll promote it and get that going. So I know that this is the month of love with February, and you are, I had to think of the love bugs. You're a love bug, and you speak the message of love, and you really come from a place from your heart. So you're very heart-centered. And I think what's fascinating about you is that you're very, intellectual, very educated and so forth. But you come across from a heart standpoint, and if it feels right or not, and you connect to people in this way. So I love that about you, and also the mysticism being, studying, I guess, with the Christian, but you got the mysticism. So it's really well-rounded, and I really love your viewpoints on things. And one of the things I wanted to talk about, I thought you would be absolutely perfect for, is about love enduring all. And I get similar questions, especially in the live chat, and it's about, why does this world have to be so difficult? Why is there pain and suffering? Why is it that I have people in my family that, or people around me, maybe coworkers or whoever, that are difficult to love, not less, sometimes like, and yet this is our lesson here to love. And how do I grow spiritually? Because we can't ignore that aspect of love as loving when it's difficult. And I think later on we're going to talk about the marriage aspect of this, especially with the romance and love. But as far as people's personal journey, this is one that hangs them up a lot. And quite honestly, me too, with certain people, to get past that, to be bigger than that is difficult.
Yeah, for sure. That doesn't go away just because you die and come back, because there always are personality traits and characteristics and cultural conflicts. There's all sorts of, the world is filled with all sorts of fragments and brokenness. And that is why we have suffering, because it's not the unitive state of being. The unitive state of being, the unity of the oneness of being, the eternal oneness, the infinite love itself is cohesive. And when you're in the presence of the divine, you are in union inside of the divine, and everything else is outside and less than. And so all the universe, it's 13 point something 7 billion years in age, expanding, full of galaxies and planetary systems and human beings here on our planet. And the whole thing from end to end is filled with brokenness. It's not just our human lives that are limited in capacity. And so people ask me all the time, why is there suffering? Well, I've been in the place where there is no suffering. I've been there, and that is not here. And if this were the place of no suffering, you would be in heaven. You would not be here. For it to exist, for that entire universe, for our entire universe to exist, and use your imaginations with me here. It's not just Earth. We now know it's not just Earth, and it's not just our galaxy, and it's not just the exoplanets we're finding. And now, as the Pentagon's talking about, it's not just the aliens that they're tracking with their Navy ships and jet fighters. Google it for yourself. Don't take my word.
Oh, no. I've been watching. I have.
That's for your audience.
Oh, no. I got to tell you. So let me just chime in real quick.
Sure, please.
We're going to have some fun. So it was just last week. I mean, I live in Charlotte, North Carolina, but I live not, maybe 20 minutes from the city. And there's a little subdivision where we are. It was not even 5 minutes away. And there was a fleet of UFOs taken. I mean, there's no doubt it was a fleet. It was like a mothership and a fleet. And these things are showing up all the time.
All the time.
And I'm like, and I think they've always been there, but I wonder why they are becoming so bold to show themselves now. I mean, are they that worried about us that we're going to blow each other up, or is it their own agenda? But yeah, I mean, someone just took it with their camera, and it was a foggy night, and there's no doubt there's a pattern. I mean, it was a lot, like 30.
That's a lot.
It's a lot, and like a mothership. And there's nothing. There was a few photographs, and there was a film. There's really, I mean, it's pretty obvious it was a fleet. But you see this thing. There was another one taken. There was a thing that it's called, what is it? A Paranormal Caught on Film. It's really cheesy, but it's good. And they have all the time people sending in photographs of these fleets. So you're right.
I saw one. I chased one in 1977 in a car with a bunch of guys when we were going to go drinking together. And but we tossed out all the paraphernalia, and we chased this thing for miles.
Really? What did it look like?
It was so what happened? If we're kind of off subject, but it's
we're off subject. Everybody's like, I want to know about the UFO.
All right, so
love thing, but
I was the camp responsible. I was responsible, and so they let me take the camp car. And so we went out, we bought some Stroh's Bohemian beer, which is 3.2, and we had a little bit of marijuana with us, cannabis with us, and we parked at the top of this hill overlooking a river where it was really quiet. We were just going to sit around, listen to music, and talk. And suddenly over our head, the size of like a half a football field was the whole place got illuminated. We're sitting in the car and the whole place is illuminated. And I'm like, oh my God, boys, it's the cops. We're all Catholic schoolboys. We all go to private Catholic school, and we're all working at a Catholic camp. And so I'm like, okay, boys, let's be good. Let's get out of the car. It's the police. We all get out of the car, and there's no cop car behind us. And we all look up at the same time, and the sky over our head is brilliant white. It's illuminated, and no crickets, no birds, no nothing. It's totally silent. And I was like, I looked way out to the edge of this thing, and then it just started to float off. And so we got in the car and we chased it. We went down, I drove, threw all the stuff out the windows, and we drove down the hill, and we hadn't even cracked a beer yet. And we turned the corner and we followed this thing for miles through the camp, hitting 86 miles an hour, because I looked at the speedometer as I blew through the middle of the camp. And it got to I was in Ohio. Got to a right angle turn, and it never decelerated. It made a right angle turn at a sharp right angle and never stopped. And we went flying by. So I hit the brakes, turned the car around back to follow it again on that road. It was waiting for us a half a mile away. I floored it as we got close to it, I don't know how close to it, say 50 feet. 100 feet, it shot off into space so fast it left a streak of light between where it was and its exit of the atmosphere in the snap of a finger. And we're all like, what was that?
That is cool. That is cool.
So all of that played into, it all plays into my thinking about the universe.
It
right?
had to.
It
had to change you, didn't it? I mean, it would have changed me.
Oh, it totally changed me. We kept a secret. And so then I lost these guys. We were from all over the United States. And I put out a video. It's on my YouTube channel about this thing. And about a year later, and I couldn't remember these guys' names. I was 18 years old. About a year later, 2 of them got in touch with me. And we had this long conversation one day for like an hour and a half. They invited me to their place up in Montana or Saskatchewan. I can't remember where it is. But yeah, they kept their mouths shut about it too. We all kept our mouths shut about it.
Well, now let's say, people are very open to this kind of thing. So just to kind of wrap up that topic and how the world is so much bigger and that, what's our part in all of this? Why do you think there's been so much activity with the UFOs lately?
I think maybe we're ready. Maybe we're ready.
It's funny. I've thought about that too. They've been here maybe because they're not hiding it anymore. They're not hiding it, and so maybe it's at that point that that there's some type of convergence that's going to happen, that there's some type of, that would really, that would bam, go into a 5th dimensional vibration. That would bam, open it up. That would immediately get our head stuck out of our rear and, wow, that, really have a V8 and wake up and spiritually go, wow, it's not just about me. It's not even just about humans.
Nope.
It's about life forms. And that would definitely do it. And I think there's lots of alien life forms, quite honestly. I think there's
there's a lot of, there are, NASA's finding the Hubble telescope and the new James Webb telescope. Is that the name of it? They're finding exoplanets all the time. Habitable planets. Is a habitable planet in Centaurus B? Is a planet, our closest star, 4 light years away, has a habitable planet around it. And just a week ago, they announced that they got some strange radio signal that they're not sure what it was, because there are ways to see radio signals. Radio signals have a consistency. Let's say there's a consistency of form, and when there's something that stands out, it's coming from a particular place. Everybody in the astronomy world is like, "What was that?" And they think that the debate was this manufactured or is this natural? That's really the question. And they don't know the answer to that, but it's the first time that the deaths happened. So that's to wrap this whole thing up. I'm going to swing it around back to what we were talking about before.
Yeah, absolutely.
So when I was dead, I saw that love is all. When I say love is all there is, times a bazillion, cajillion times of all the universe, the entire universe is enfolded in love. All of it, every single sentient being from every single place. And if this becomes our reality, that Earth is just one planet in a galaxy filled with other planets, very Star Wars or Star Trek like, human beings will have a choice. Because the Christian idea that humanity is at the pinnacle of all creation is, we already know, Copernicus was like, no, I don't think Earth is in the center of the universe.
Right.
Right. And so now human beings will finally be dethroned from that hierarchy.
Wow.
And that theologically, the idea of human beings at the pinnacle of the hierarchy will put a huge crack in literalism. And when in this whole thing, all the stories we tell ourselves and our mythological religious backgrounds, Islam, Judaism, Christianity, all of them, all of those mythological forms are just stories that we help ourselves understand what the divine is in relationship to us. And we're going to discover that those things that have divided us, we're going to be one planet. We're going to be like, we are Earthlings. And this is my prediction. My prediction is that the aliens are going to be like, have you ever tried coffee? Have you been to Earth? They have coffee.
Starbucks, it's fantastic.
It's really good. So coffee has always been this drink of civilizing drink of the world. So maybe we can utilize it galactically. So anyway, the idea here is that from end to end, from the singularity, what they call the Big Bang, where we can measure the beginning of universe and time, to the very edge of the expanding universe and every galaxy and planet in it, it's all broken. The whole thing is fragmentation of the oneness of being. The oneness of being has no fragmentation in it. It is the unity of love itself, from which all things arrive and arise. And I think it's going to be interesting to hear their stories. Do they have this same story?
Well, it's funny to tie into with that and about the love. And I'm still, there's certain things that I have to just let it sit. Like, I need more information. I think it was my very first podcast with the Seeking Heaven channel, Cheryl Gottschall, and she studied alien life forms with NDEs, and that was what she did. She researched it with another expert, and one of her near-death experiencers that she interviewed had a NDE and saw an alien going into the light, and it saw it like, I guess it was a portal. I guess she was on a portal. There was another one on a portal. It was like a little gray, and so the gray looked very sad. I don't know what happened to it. It looked very sad. And
that's the first time I've heard of that kind of thing.
Yeah. Right. And I did not know there was a tie-in between the aliens and near-death experience. And so that's when I decided to open this all up to time travel, aliens, portals, of course, different religions, mysticism, and so forth, because I had no idea. I didn't know that was a thing, but apparently it is a phenomenon where there's a crossover between the two.
There is a man named Rudolf Schild who's an astrophysicist at the Harvard Smithsonian Astrophysics. I'm blanking on that full name of it, but I'll look that up in a minute and I'll get that straight. But he's noticed a correlation in that. That's how I ended up meeting him and talking to him, is because of that thing.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh. What does he say about it?
He thinks that there is a correlation. He's a scientist. He's not going to be like, well, this causes that. He's more like, we're noticing these patterns. And I'm gonna look it up here. I want to get the name.
Yeah.
Right. However.
And but that is something that I'm still looking at, and I have not that I don't have the answers to everything. I mean, again, we're all in a
nobody does.
Yeah, we're all on a spiritual journey, but to me, that's still new to me, like how that interacts. But yeah, that is a thing, that is a phenomenon. And I'm going to tell you who else Cheryl Gottschall worked with. I'll tell you who it is. She worked with, I'm going to tell you the person's name. I'll tell you here. Kenneth Ring.
Oh, yeah.
Kenneth Ring. Mm-hmm. On this, and this research for years. And he has done research on the NDE crossing over with the alien and abductee encounter. And it's funny, just to wrap up with this whole thing, which is, my sister-in-law was for years involved with MUFON, and she was in the area. We go to conferences, and I literally have seen the abductees where you see the scoop mark taken out of their leg, and it looks like a utensil. It's really like a cantaloupe thing almost. Mm. But yeah, I've met Bob Lazar, and
I know that name.
Yeah, he was it Area 51 where he saw the propulsion system. So yeah, so you're right. This would open up not just ourselves, because we're so hung up, oh, why do I have to go through, why do I have to go through pain and suffering? But if you look at it as a humanity, which is kind of where we need to get back anyway, as unity, and we look at it as humanity, how did we go? The best thing that can happen, Peter, I was thinking about this the other day. We were watching, my husband are big sci-fi fans, and we were watching some really silly, bad sci-fi movie.
Which is the best sometimes.
Not good. Well, yeah, and this was like not good, bad, good, but it was just bad. But usually, bad, good is okay. But we were, the best thing that would happen if we had like an alien, not malicious invasion, but just like an alien like presence show up, we would all be like singing Kumbaya together. There would be no differences. We would be like human race.
Yep.
Black, white, pink, yellow. We love each other. We would.
Earthlings.
Yeah, we're the Earthlings. That would bring us together closer than anything.
That's what I think too.
Would be gone immediately overnight, because I think this is a mocked up drama of you're this way and you're that way. Because honestly, I've done a lot of past life. We've been everything. We've been male, female, different, poor, rich, healthy, unhealthy. We've been all sorts of things. And this would be a unifying factor. It would definitely get us out of our head and out of our mopiness.
And out of our tribalism. Actually, our tribalism would shift. Our tribalism would become global.
Yeah, it would shift. We would still have it, but it would be more unified. Yep. It would be a global effort. And I do see that, and I don't know what you think, but doing with the doing the YouTube and never really thought. I just kind of did this to be of service and start a soul community and so forth, kind of like you're giving back in your way. And I love everybody has their self-expression of how, like you do it with the Not Church. And I've sent people your way and they love it. And
Thank you.
And I love how you put yourself out there, and other people, like Trisha Barker, different ones are putting themselves out there and so forth. I love that. But to create that soul community, but I didn't realize how many people around the world that have come to me, and then when this dialogue started, I'm doing stuff with them, they're doing stuff with me, and I'm realizing what a small planet we have.
Very. Zoom makes it so. We now see each other's faces and expressions, and from other sides of the planet. And I got that name. It's the Harvard-Smithsonian Center for Astrophysics. The guy's name is Rudolf Schild, and he's brilliant, of course.
Rudolf Schild. Okay, I'm going to look at that.
Rudolf Schild. He's brilliant. And so the whole unifying love thing of the Earth, I think that's a possibility. Maybe it's our only hope.
I don't know.
Well, I'm going to stop that. There is another hope, and that other hope. Other hope is that medical science has been raising the dead for 50 years now, and we are everywhere. Near-death experiencers are the product of human intellect bringing back the dead, creating an international army of near-death experiencers who are preaching the same truth, and like the different shades of it, but it's love.
I like that second one. And it's funny because I channel and I connect to Jesus because I saw him over there, but with my NDE twice, but I've channeled other holy people, other religions, even like Sai Baba, and there's other others there, of course, on the other side, but I get my lessons, and one of the lessons was it was funny because it was before we talked the first time, I guess a few months ago, and I was told that several people are doing what I'm doing, but they're repackaging it and branding it differently. Remember, you know what I mean? They have their spin, how they do it, and their audience within that, the message of love.
Yeah, the message of love is this. It's this global, universal thing. I think that we're discovering. So 50 years, near-death experiencers have been exploding in numbers because of cardiac care globally, trans-religiously, every culture, every language. And now, for the first time, we're talking to each other. And we have the capacity to put out our little shows, but there are 10 million or 20 in the United States alone, and so it's like this conspiracy. If there's a conspiracy, if there really is, I'm going to tell you the truth. Okay, this is the truth of the conspiracy: that God and scientists are in cahoots, and that God is creating mystics on a global scale to bring the message of love that's arising in individual hearts, in the temple of individual hearts, that's presenting itself like the lotus blossom that blooms where you are. And when you turn around, you're like, hey, oh my, you have a different color skin and from a different language and different religion and different everything else, but that's the same lotus flower in your heart as I have over here.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying too. And it's beautiful. It's beautiful. And it's interesting, a similar phenomenon, and then people go, well, I haven't had a near-death experience. Well, they could have had a spiritual transformative experience. They could be, an awakening, Kundalini awakening, some kind of awakening. People that are searching, I guarantee you, they've had they're awakening. If they're searching, they're awakening. But I always say it's not too late because we're human. But you're right. People are coming back right and left.
Yeah, and besides, it's never too late because heaven has no time.
Yeah.
So you're only a sojourner here. You are a passerby. You've stepped from the darkness onto the narrow beam, the balanced beam of the world, and you walk through, and then you exit, and everybody's always hung up on the beam. Everybody's like, it's not the beam, it's about where you came from and where you're going. And those two places, this is the in-between space where there's safety can be found in this fragmentation, in this world of suffering, if you connect to the other side. If you aim your heart at the oneness of being, then you find your balance on that beam as you walk across, not because the balance has changed or the beam has changed or you've changed, but because now you've got like this cable of light that runs from the cord that runs out your heart into the darkness in front of you and out your back into the darkness behind you, which is not dark at all. It is love itself. We're only blind to it. And now we've got this balance cable. And so when people talk about suffering, and suffering is a real thing. I've suffered. Yes. You've suffered. Everybody suffers.
Yeah. It's part of being human.
It's part of being, it is, yes, it is, but it's also part of being a chickadee, and part of being a bear, and part of being a dolphin, and part of being a continent, and part of being a planet, and part of being a solar system, and part of being the whole galaxy. It's pervasive everywhere. Augustine, one of the ancient writers in the Christian tradition, said that the three most terrible words in the language are these: me, my, mine. Me, my, mine. And that's a self-identification. And when we identify with ourselves in our suffering, it makes it harder. When we identify with the light in our suffering, it makes it easier. It really does.
So now speak to that. This is good. Okay. So if you're right, when you say I went through this, my, but if we can identify with other similar people that have gone through, let's just say someone who had a loss, someone they loved, they passed away. Maybe they're not the only ones. So you're saying it makes it easier when you can identify as a group and there's strength in that. Is that what versus?
That's part of what I'm saying, but I'll come back to that, but I'm pushing it a step further, is okay. When your self-identification is with your body, then your self-identification is in the wrong space.
Oh, I got it. Yeah. Well, you know what? Okay, that's good. A lot of people that are out here, not the ones that listen to your show or mine, I'm making a joke there, but they think they might be their body, and this is just a vessel.
But it's not their fault.
Of course it's not their fault. It's not their fault. They don't know better. But you're right. I think that would be, it's liberating to know that we're a spiritual being and that we live forever. And this is a vessel, and you can pick up a new one later. Maybe it'll look like,
not pick up one at all.
Well, a lot of people like to do that.
Yeah, well, that's the goal. I don't want to come back. I don't want to be back here again. Come on.
Yeah, well, it's funny. I don't know, Peter. I don't know how to stop that cycle because I get it, and my husband says I don't want to do this again.
Aim
And
to the light is when with the self. It's what we're talking about. It's the self-identification of your. It's the self-identification with the light itself. That's how that works, and that's how humanity is compassionate and gracious to each other. When you love, putting it right down to the ground here, when you love your enemy, and I don't know if you've ever had an enemy. Have you ever had an enemy, a real enemy?
I've had people that have had counter intention toward me.
Antagonistic.
Antagonistic. I mean, to say enemy, I don't know. I don't really use that word a lot, but I've had people that are antagonistic toward me, or for some reason I don't know, don't like me. I think I'm pretty lovable, but there's people out there that just maybe they got a bad attitude. I don't know. Yeah. Okay. That would be.
Yep. So how do you love those people?
I guess I look at them like, first of all, I don't I try not to hang out with people really negative.
Well, yeah, right. Exactly.
I don't hey, let's go to the movies, So the second thing I guess I would do is I would feel, based on where they are and where their mindset is, they just don't know better. So I guess I have a lot of times pity. But I think if someone's trying to create havoc in your life, I don't like that. And I try to, move that away from me. Once I move the threat away, then I guess that I ask God to open their eyes, to soften their heart so they can see differently, because where they are, that's just how they live. I also look at it this way. People are that angry and lashing out at people and want to attack people. I would hate to be them. It would suck to be them because they're not happy. So there's a part of me that feels sorry for them, because I really wouldn't want to wish that on anybody. Do I love them? That's the second part Jesus talked about. It's hard for me. I got to be honest. My love is getting. I used to have a lot of anger issues because I had sexual abuse. So I had when I was a kid. So I had anger issues.
Yeah, of course you would. Trauma.
Yeah, and so I was, especially when I was in my 20s, I was like a pissed off young woman. So I try not to. It's a lot for me to not go down that road and go, okay, they don't know better, it's okay, but to actually get into a state where I love them. I don't know in my spiritual development if I can love someone who's a killer. I just don't. I don't under my human mind. I can't understand how to really do that Christ did. I'm working on that. I don't.
That's what we're talking about. What we're talking about is the Christness of this, and that's the secret of how to do it. It's not that people conflate human love with divine love. It's not the same thing. Human love is always I love my kids unconditionally. I love my children unconditionally. There is nothing that I can ever imagine that they would ever do, even, and neither of them are this way at all. They're not heinous whatsoever. They're beautiful, wonderful human beings. But if they even committed a heinous act, I wouldn't support them in it, but I couldn't help but love them.
I understand.
I couldn't help but love them. And so to this connecting point, this brokenness of the world, these people are broken in the world. I'm broken in the world. The world is always broken. Every single human being in the world is broken. And we're all at these different forms of brokenness. And so what's the unifying factor that runs between all of us? It's the divine presence itself. And when you love somebody like your enemy, I've had real enemies. I've had people try to destroy me personally, financially, professionally, and socially, publicly ruin me.
Wow, that would be.
It's pretty serious stuff. And I've been under threat. I've had people threaten my life. I've been shot at. I've been beaten. It's been an interesting career as a pastor. Okay, it's not milk and cookies. And how do you love your enemy? Yeah. How do you love the man who stands in the DA's office when the DA's gone and he sticks his finger in your face and says to you, and this is after 18 years in prison, as one night, arson, attempted murder, grand theft, smuggling, and kidnapping. 18 years in prison, sticks his finger in your face and says, swear, 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 I'm going to get you. I'm going to get you and your family. And like, whoa.
That is,
So
that's in your screenplay. That sounds crazy.
it's not, but it's so inside that man, inside that man is the same spark of light that is inside you. And that is the secret. It's not in, did I defend myself against this guy? You bet I did. You bet I did. Because you know, I
think he was serious. For someone to do that, they obviously they meant that.
They meant it. It's a serious thing. And
Right.
and so I, you know, I defended myself, and that's a whole nother story. But the thing about it is that even when he was saying this to me, even when I was frightened by this guy, thinking about my family,
Oh yeah.
I still could see the spark of light inside of him. I could still see the light inside of him. And that's that, because the light inside of me is the light inside of him. Even if he can't see it, I can. And that's the connective point. That's how you love your enemy. You don't lay down in front of your enemy and let him steamroll over your family, but you don't have to hate him, because of the fragmentary nature of the entire universe, as it's broken apart from the oneness of being, fragmented into all these molecules and neurons and emotions. All these things are veils above this one point of the divine light. And if you aim at the one point of the divine light, then you get to see that light through everything incrementally. And sometimes, not just incrementally, sometimes by the power of grace with a capital G, you get transported in a mystical experience, a spiritually transformative experience that's not, that is so transformative, so mystical, that it leaves you with an inner knowledge of your own connection with the divine.
Okay, so I think I have an example. That's a very good example. Well, I was on a trip, Cancun, years ago, 20-some years ago, with my husband, and he was sick. He had Montezuma's revenge, so he stayed in the hotel room, and he said, well, it was at the Omni, so he's like, you know, they have little excursions. He said, go, you know, I wasn't alone. He said, go off with the group, you know, from the hotel. So I went snorkeling. Well, what happened is we were brought out into this open sea, and one of the guys, I think there was the person who drove the boat that was out with the people, he kind of lured me away from others, and he was going to rape me in the water. So what I did is I connected to that part of him that was a real person, that had that spark, and I got him so talking about his dreams and his family that he did. I mean, I got the whole download. I mean, there was no doubt what was going to happen, but I thought I could be dead in this ocean. I could just be some American that would never come back to my husband. No one would know where I was. They would never find me. I would be like, fish bait. I would
Sharks.
Sure. Yeah, I would never be. It was the big open ocean. It wasn't like a reef. I would never be found again. And so I knew that I had to, you know, he did this a lot. I knew that. This is what he does. He's good at this. So I granted him the beingness and talked to him and really got into him as a person, asked him questions, his family. And at the end, he gave me this big conch shell and he thanked me for my time. And then I was thinking, I've done that with criminals. I've actually visited like ministries with prisons, and they like me and look out for me because I look for that spark in there and not what they did. And they said, you know, it's dangerous to be here. You shouldn't be here. And I'm like, I'm protected. But I've had a lot of criminal types look out for me.
I have too.
Because I'm like, see that in them.
Yep. Well, thank God you were on your feet that day on your mental game.
Well, it's funny. It pushes you to a higher level when you are. I mean, I just thought I'm not going to come back from this. I'll be
Right.
raped, and I'm not going to come back from this. So I had to, do. That's really usually not. If you go into a state of fear, it doesn't work. It doesn't
No.
work really well. So that was a love flow, and it seems totally opposite. And it was really weird because at the end he's thanking me. I'm like, how weird is this day? And I got back to the room. I was like sunburned because he delayed me getting back on the boat. And when I got back, he said, how'd it go? I said, I just want to take a shower and get something to eat. I don't even want to talk about it. But I'm grateful to be alive. But even in that moment, as strange as it is, I think there was something spiritual that happened.
Yeah. God's always present.
Maybe I stopped raping women after that.
Maybe.
Do you know what I mean? Maybe.
Maybe
because I saw something better in him.
something better.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I think that's that's a very good example about loving that. But it is that spark of God and that divine, and
Can save your life.
it did. But you think I could have been a person that chose the wrong choices in life. I still would have had that spark in there.
Yep. Met a bunch of people like that in my life. The spark, even in someone who's been the most corrupt there is, they still have the spark inside them. It might be buried so down deep inside them that it's covered over and encrusted and encased and in darkness, but if they don't have it, then they don't exist.
Right. That's the life force that's in there. And they've I think a lot of it, Peter, is that, we're talking about someone who's like, maybe let's say even, if we could use a word, more broken than the average person, and they've forgotten who they are, and they've gotten themselves in a mess, maybe a lot of crimes or whatever it may be, and they've gotten themselves a bit botched up. If it weren't for an encouraging word or hope for that person, there's no hope that person would ever be reminded of who they really are. So I think that's kind of why we do what we do, is just to remind people that they are, a part of God, that their life is important.
And they'll find out the moment that they die.
Yeah, they will.
And that's a lot sooner than you think.
Doesn't matter.
Nope.
They will find out that and they'll feel a bit silly, like, oh, wow, who knew? I was loved this whole time. Wow, I sure played this game about how that was. So now, as you have a lot of people that are truth seekers that come to your night church. What do you tell people that are going right now through a struggle, and that, whether it's love of self or love of others, maybe they're having a difficult time. How do you tell them to unwind that and to be at a place that they can sense that loving presence and be that loving presence?
Well, it depends on what the suffering is, right? If someone is suffering depression that's biochemically based, I'm gonna reach down for a second. If someone's suffering depression that's biochemically based, or they're suffering some kind of mental illness that's biochemically based, it's a harder fix, because there's mental illness going on there. That said, it's always I always give the same answer, because it's always the same answer. It's always about aiming at the oneness of being, because that is the cure all. That is the light itself is the cure all. It doesn't eliminate suffering, but it gives the strength to bear it. So the way it's worked, I could tell you how it works in my life. Okay.
Okay.
Personal example. I've spent close to 40 years in pursuit of this, in practice, not knowledge. Okay. I read a lot. I study a lot, but it's never about knowledge for me. Knowledge is always this ancillary thing. The goal, the aim, is to aim my heart, my mind, my soul at the divine oneness of being. And when I tap that space, when I keep tapping that space like a little hammer with a chisel, tick, 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 I carve a channel inside myself, like a reservoir inside myself, where I am emptying out the chips that are chipping away is myself. I'm chipping away at my ego. I'm chipping away at my egoic self, my false self, whatever you want to call it. I'm chipping away at that to allow space for the divine to be in. And the more I practice in my meditative life, and I practice quieting myself, the more permeable I am, or I become, to the will of the divine to enter into me and give me an experience. Because it's not about belief, really. Belief can lead you there, but really it's about providing an open vessel for the presence of the divine to enter in. And when the presence of the divine either enters into you or lifts you out of yourself, it gives you this transformative experience. That's the space that it begins the opportunity for you to not to alleviate your suffering, but to bring the light to your life and your suffering. And so that it doesn't change my world around me, but what it gives me is a couple of things. It gives me an interior connectedness to the holy, with always a remembrance of where I'm from and where I'm going. But in the real world, in the physical world, that same presence comes into my heart and kind of radiates out from my body into the world around me, creating a bubble of holy space wherever I go, which doesn't mean that my suffering ends, and it doesn't mean that I always make the right decision. What it means is that in the world, I'm being carried along, or I provided space to allow myself to be carried along inside of the light itself while I'm in the fragmented, broken world. And that's the avenue that I read about in global mystical literature of personal transformation. I'm not trying to become self-realized with a little s and a little r. I'm trying to provide space for the self with a capital S and a capital R. That's self-realization, the realization that I am part of the divine, that the light is in me, and that I am that. Then when that happens inside me, that's where the strength for all suffering, to endure suffering, comes from.
I agree.
It doesn't wash it away. It doesn't make it. People have this mistaken notion that when you have an awakening or a realization or an enlightenment, that suddenly life is like. Did you ever see the Eddie Murphy movie Golden Boy?
Yeah.
Okay. People think you end up like Golden Boy. You're radiating this golden light, but remember what else is going on in that movie. People are trying to get him. So there's always conflict around the golden boy, and the golden boy might be blissed out all the time, but nobody around him is. Everybody around him is, and that's who we are.
Well, look at John Lennon. Look at him. They look at the Beatles. I mean, they got into not just because they did, Middle East or whatever, but they were very much so searchers of the divine and multiple ways. And then at the end, he's minding his business, doing this beautiful music that's still very popular today. And then you had someone, shoot him right in front of his flat, right in front of New York. And he's just minding his business. So, one of the first things I noticed with your night church is how when you were outside and you were like listening to the nature and you were getting everybody, I thought it was first, because at first I heard you're great, and I've had Ingrid different people say, oh, Peter's great, you love him. I'm like, okay. And I'm like, okay, well, let me check this out. I'm seeing you out there. I'm like, what a trip. Who is this guy? But what you're doing is you were letting people know, like, to experience the world around you.
Yeah.
And teaching people to listen for the nature and to being a part of it. And I think that to me, if you had to hardwire, I think that our birthright is to download, plug in to God, the divine, is nature is a quick way to do it. For me, what I like to do, my little personal thing is I like motion. I like motion. I don't like being totally still. And so I like to go out in my swing. I have a swing and I bring my two Shih Tzus with me, and I like being on the swing. And then I'll first notice the beauty around me in the nature. And then I like being barefoot if possible. And then I start focusing on the sounds of nature, and it become really loud, really loud. And then I get into the state of appreciation, and I get into my breath, and then at some point I start closing my eyes, and then I will just merge and be in this bliss state. And then it just helps me remember why I'm here and who I really am. This is just this physical vessel doesn't last really long. We're really from the light. And so it helps me remember that part of me and how this is very translucent. It's where we have moments of time, we're here, and then it's gone, and then that moment's gone too. And so, but the eternal state, the eternal, I won't say eternity, but the eternal state is our light body and being in the presence of the divine. So that's how I do it. I get into a state of appreciation and look around and be a part of it, and then I blend, and then I breathe, and then I just I ask God to fill me and to know Him more and to check me. Is there anything that I need to be doing? Sometimes I get responses, sometimes I get nothing. It doesn't really matter. I think it to me just feels healthy for my state of mind. When I don't do that, I get a little anxious. I find myself getting anxious if I don't take that time.
Yeah, got to take that time. What you're describing is, there's a term called nature mystic. Nature mystic is a person who, when they're out in nature, the divine speaks to them through nature, and it's a pretty common sort of thing. I mean, I'm like you. I'm a nature mystic. I go outside. I live in a very rural place. I live in a rural state, the most forested state in the Union. Wow. I live in a rural place in that state. I live on a peninsula, and that's isolated, and then I live on a peninsula that sticks off of that peninsula, like in the middle of nowhere. And in the
wonderful.
It is. It's really it's a wonderful community here. Wonderful. But nature, wild nature, all around us, and because it's you step outside. When you and it could be in the middle of New York City in Central Park. It doesn't matter. It doesn't. If there's a plant there, if there's green, something growing, or the ocean, or a river, or a stream, or in your sunroom, or on your kitchen table in your apartment, an African violet, that is radiating the divine presence through no effort of its own. It just does, and all you need to do is pay attention to it and let it speak for you and to you, and let that be your prayer. Nature bathing, I've heard it called. Japanese call it nature bathing.
Yeah, it really does it for me, and I really like, with my feet touching the grass. But one of the things that I notice is not uncommon, if not in that moment, it could be very soon after that. I have interactions with nature, whether I've had a big owl land right in front of my driveway, huge, and just stare at me for a while. I mean, things will start happening with nature with me too. Cardinals will land in front of me. I don't really expect that. I mean, that's not the point of it all, but it's not uncommon that that nature starts. It's almost like the love that I give back and the appreciation. It's like, we live in a two-way, communication flow environment. It's almost like they want to give it back.
If you expect it, then that's all you'll get. If you're after the divine light itself, then you'll get the divine light and those things.
Yeah, that's the second part. And so I don't really expect that, but I think I'm sending love, and I'm so happy that they're like, oh, we love you back. We just want to love you back. But to me, that helps. Also, music helps me. If I have a certain, ones without words preferably, but sometimes music, and will put me in a blissful state. And also, if it's very, no words again, they can tie you to a time period or a type of a thing. But I also like connect with spirit, like with like movement, like with the body, with music, but nothing in particular decade or whatever. And it makes me feel wrapped up with emotion and bliss. That's another thing. It sounds very hippie, doesn't it? Like a hippie.
Preaching to the choir, sister. Preaching to the choir.
Oh, great! And people are going to picture me with flowers all over my hair now, like a hippie.
I was known to wear flowers in my hair. That was not. I did do that.
Yeah, but I think that, sometimes we're so still, and that's fine, because sometimes you want to focus and just chill out and blend, and it's not always safe to be walking around doing this, but also like moving my body too, or seeing the motions of things as well, and blending with that. Or, you can also blend with the like a riverbed or whatever it is, and blend. So I try to merge in with that. It doesn't really take me long once I do that, but for me, it helps ground me, and I live in the clouds already, so that helps me connect to the divine. And you're right, that's all of our strength, because it's I that the good news, that people that don't feel good enough that are listening, I don't, first of all, know what that means. The second thing is that we're all a little broken. We're all working on stuff, and I think it's how we approach it. We want to have love of self, not beat ourselves up, and we want to have love for others. And also, there was a word that came up. You were talking about that guy that got in your face and that was pointing, which I'm sure was scary. You had to okay, let me get a grip here. But there's also something when someone is that way, and like the guy, the rapist in the water, I gave him grace.
Yeah.
And very few people give you grace. Very few people give themselves grace. And I think that that's a gift. That's a word that we don't really use that much. But I think grace is a gift. Like a grace would be something where someone has obviously wronged you, did something, whatever, and you, not just because you're a better person, but you, despite the fact, you cut them grace, meaning because we make mistakes.
Yeah, because everybody's broken.
Everybody's broken. Everybody's going to make mistakes, right? We are. I mean, we think we try not to, but we're going to do it. And so by giving each other grace, it helps remove some of that judgment, because when we judge others, we're really judging that part of ourselves.
Well, not only is that true, but you actually are judging yourself. That's what happened to me when I died. I carried all the pain I gave, all the judgments I gave in my life, all the suffering that I caused. I actually turned out that karmically I gave it to myself. And I was the one who suffered that when I died.
Oh man, that's horrible. Is that the life review you're talking about?
That's my life review.
Oh, so your life review was not a pleasant moment. It was not, okay. Okay.
But the upshot of it was that I was also made of divine love and light, and was fully known. And it wasn't my fault that I was born into the world of fragmentation and suffering. I didn't create the universe. I was just a being in the universe, following the rules of suffering and fragmentation. And because my heart was still connected to love, and love, when love spoke to me, I could hear the soundless voice of love, the wordless voice of love speaking inside me, and all of the suffering that I caused, it all fell off me. It all vanished. It all was forgotten. And I was infilled with oneness and unity, and beauty and bliss, adoration and joy, knowledge and understanding, wisdom. And none of it arose from me. And I wasn't deserving of it, because I was not, because I wasn't made of goodness, but because I wasn't all goodness. I was just a tiny drop of goodness. And it's that thing inside yourself.
Wow.
Is the key to all of this. It's the key to all of this, which is why I've dedicated my whole life to this. People, what were you like before? I was a different person. Were you a walk-in? People say, you sound like a walk-in. Well, I guess in a sense I was a walk-in, except for that I'm the same soul in the same body. It's just that my soul saw what it saw and came back with a humble understanding of my own self-worth.
Wow, that's beautiful. Yeah, and I think that term walk-ins used kind of a lot, but probably more rare, because you just sound like you had an awareness, an epiphany, and the beauty of
beatific vision, they call it.
What is it called again?
A beatific vision. A beatific vision, beautiful, the beautiful vision of the divine self. That's why I named the book "Heaven is Beautiful."
Yes.
because it's a unitive state of beauty.
Well, it's cohesive, and I think maybe that's one of the things. I've never really looked at it like that, but everything works for everything else. Everything makes sense at that moment. Everything is it's like things that didn't seem to make sense all make sense. So here, very few things make sense, right? There's a lot of, like you say, brokenness, but I think that to me is also beautiful, is the unification that you got there. And I will say that you know, with a lot of near-death experiences, there's moments of sadness because
Yeah.
of longing for that. I mean, I have to be guilty to say, you know, I get over it quick. I'm like, okay, you know, be on point. Come on, you're here for a reason. Come on, get over it. You'll you know, the time will come for sure. So, but there's moments I feel sad that I can't bask in that and be a part of it, because it's not that here. But I go, okay, well, that's not my role right now. My purpose is to learn how to love and keep moving on. And I don't get stuck in that, but I do have little glimpses. But we can still get that fed when we get into that, especially like I said, the nature. What is it? Was it called a nature?
Nature bathing, nature mystic.
Mm-hmm. Nature mystic. Yeah, it helps. Yeah, I can't imagine anything else. Yeah, especially if you put animals in there with it, nature and animals. I'm good. Any kind of animal.
Same.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, same here.
Bears, anything. It doesn't really matter. I'm happy. Well, look, thank you so much for your time today. It was just a wild, crazy roller coaster ride. Love enduring all. It just, we went into areas that we went down trails from UFOs all the way back out, and it gave us, I think, a much bigger perspective, kind of back away, and then we came in a little tighter and closer, and I think it ended up beautiful. And I think that if everybody remembered that spark of love they have within themselves, and just be kind to themselves, knowing that we're all doing the best that we can, and that no one is perfect. And I don't even know what that word is, quite honestly. I don't know what perfect is, so I don't think I can become that, because I really don't know what that is. But thank you so much for your time today. And those listening, please watch Peter on Not Church, which is on his YouTube channel on Sundays at 10 a.m. And is that Eastern or Pacific?
Eastern. No dogma, no doctrine, no BS, just mysticism.
Well, you know that already by listening to him. You know, Peter doesn't sugarcoat anything. You get what you get, and he's very real. And thank you for doing all that you do.
You're welcome, Tamara. Thanks for having me very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Thank you.